good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to yet another session of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'd seen up to the 45th verse of the 18th chapter. A lot of the ideas in the 18th chapter are taken from the older chapters. So it's a kind of continuation of the ideas. So I don't think there are any very, very radically new concepts that are coming in. Now onwards. A lot of it is something you've seen before, but wherever there is something new, something you have not seen, then I'll take a moment to explain. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. I think even whatever we saw earlier, it's a continuation of the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and a few of the other ideas on doing what is aligned to one's nature. That's the last one we saw. Sve sve karmanya bhiratah samsiddhim labhate naraha swakarma niratah siddhim yatha vindati tachruno. So by doing the work that is aligned to you, then you attain the highest state, and we attain fulfillment by pursuing work that is aligned to our swadharma. Next is another beautiful verse. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarchya siddhim vindanti manavaha. So one finds fulfillment by working in harmony with his natural abilities and making that as an offering to the one who pervades this universe and from whom all creatures have arisen. Manavaha yataha bhutanam pravrittihi yena idam sarvam tatam tam swakarmana abhyarchya siddhim vindati. So there are so many beautiful ideas here. First is manavaha yataha bhutanam pravrittihi. So manavaha, the people, yataha bhutanam pravarti, from whom all these beings have arisen, yena idam sarvam tatam, by whom the entire universe is pervaded, to that one, to that supreme being, tam swakarmana abhyarchya. So the working in alignment with one's natural abilities, performing swakarma, and abhyarcha, offering that to the supreme, siddhim vindati. He attains fulfillment, he attains perfection. So here the entire definition of the supreme being is made so broad. He is not talking specifically about Krishna or Shiva or Vishnu or Shakti, nothing. He's not even talking about a personal deity. He is talking about the supreme Brahman, the one who pervades the universe, from whom all the creatures have arisen, making that as an offering, making the work that we do, which is aligned to our nature, which brings us joy, yet we offer it to the highest, and then we find enjoyment, we find fulfillment, we find happiness. So it is not just enough to do work that is aligned to your nature, because there is always a possibility of some amount of ahankara, ego creeping in. So when we are doing something which is aligned to our nature and also offering it to the highest one, then we attain fulfillment. So, yataha pravrittir bhutanam.
Yataha pravrittir bhutanam.
Yena sarvamidam tatam.
Yena sarvamidam tatam.
Swakarmana tam abhyarchya.
Swakarmana tam abhyarchya.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
Siddhim vindati manavaha.
Okay, this was connected to the previous shloka, so I just wanted to complete this. So it's a logical unit. I'll take a moment to look at a couple of things, questions that were raised earlier. There are two main questions. I think one about the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and also one question about Nagendra Prasad had a question about the Varna. So I'll come to one after the other. Okay, so basically, when we say Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, we have now seen, we have an overall picture of what these three are. You would have observed that at any given point of time, all of us have all the three in in ourself. And given certain circumstances, given certain inclinations, one of the three takes more prominence. Now, the idea of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, the three gunas, have been taken from the Sankhya school of philosophy. I told you earlier, we have 6 classical schools or the Astika Darshana. So, from the Sankhya school, we have got the Triguna. And the definition according to Sankhya school is slightly different. In the case of in Bhagavad Gita, he has given it in a way that can be easily understood and is practical for understanding for people. Any sort of lethargy, any sort of laziness and stubbornness and things which basically end up causing trouble to oneself and others is defined as tamas. Then there is an element of rajas, which is relentless activity and kind of obsession, and sattva, which is a benign goodness and vitality, which is kind of the most preferred state. Although these three are the gunas, the idea is to go beyond the gunas. So we try to transcend the gunas, just like how in a state of deep sleep, there is no sattva, rajas, tamas. In sushupti, to get into sleep, the tamas is required to fall asleep. But once you are in the state of sleep, in the state of deep sleep, from your point of view, there is no sattva, rajas, tamas. You have gone beyond all the gunas. Similarly, when we are awake and we are experiencing something extraordinarily beautiful and we have forgotten our ego, forgotten everything around us, at least for those brief moments, there is no sattva, rajas, tamas. So the idea is to go beyond the sattva, rajas, tamas. When it comes to the workplace and specific situations, you have to determine based on your situation where you stand. The general idea, however, is that we try to be in sattva at all times, and whether it is rajas or tamas, to the extent it is inevitable. Now, if you want to work hard and finish a project, we have a deadline, we are putting long hours, rajas is inevitable. Similarly, if you want some rest and you want to sleep, tamas is inevitable. To the extent that rajas and tamas are inevitable, we try to direct them with the help of sattva. So, a sattvic rajasa, a sattvic tamasa is okay. But if it is pure rajas or pure tamas, then we are in trouble. So the idea is, in whether the workplace or at home or whatever, as much as possible, we try to recollect all the qualities that have been told under sattva in the Bhagavad Gita. When we look at what is sattvika ahara, sattvika dana, sattvika buddhi, sattvika dhriti, when we just remember what is sattvika and try to implement that over time, then slowly that itself has got the secret to transcend the gunas. If we are adhering to sattva as much as possible, in our life and following the precepts laid out in the Gita with regard to sattva, that itself is an automatic launch pad to get out of the escape velocity of this sattva, rajas, tamas in the binding of the atma. That's with regard to the triguna. Then there was a question by Nagendra Prasad about the idea of varna and what role it has today, and the concept of uh, like, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra by birth, being born in a certain family, as opposed to having certain traits. Now, we have established, whether it's in the Bhagavad Gita or in any other, Upanishads and few other texts, that all the varnas are important for society. Just like when we take a human body, all the organs are important. When we take a house, all the different rooms in the house are important. So we cannot, when we are building a house, we are keeping in mind certain purpose and building a room. You may use one room more, you may use one room less. Maybe one room is more important in terms of, in terms of emergency. One is less important. That's fine. There will always be a hierarchy in nature, but the overall importance of all the rooms is there. Similarly, in any organization, any social structure, in a cricket team or a football team, every member is important. Now, you cannot say that, oh, in a cricket team, why do I need 11 people? Some 8 extraordinary people are enough. No, 11 people are there. They all contribute to in some way or the other, right? So similarly, all the varnas are very important. And when we define varna as something which is based on the quality and the trait of an individual and the work that they do, then naturally all these different qualities are required. If everybody becomes a warrior, there is nobody to do art, there's nobody to do intellectual work, there's nobody to do painting, there's nobody to do business and trade and service. Similarly, everybody become like a business minded, like a businessman or a merchant or a trader. Then who will be there to do the service? Who will be there to do the ruling and governance? So we need all these members of the society in order for the society to be vibrant. So this is a basic understanding. I think all of us will agree with that when we observe human society across ages. It's only that in India, in the traditional setup, they created the system observing human nature. But any society you go, you will see this kind of distinction and the requirement of all these people in the society. Now, today, even when we look at varna in the traditional sense or in the orthodox sense today, primarily varna is something which is an abstract idea for a lot of people because they are associating more with certain groups. So when we think of marriage or when we think of certain activities like going to a matha or going to a certain religious group or a social group or so on, the local community, excuse me, is more important than the broader varna. Now, in the local community, the reason also why people look for, when they the arranged marriage and everything, look for people of a similar background is simply because it's easier to get along. So my friend Pratap had sent me a long message yesterday after the session, and he was saying pretty much the same thing, that whatever, even today when people get married, right, it's a lot of it is based on convenience. So just because somebody is a kshatriya who is working in an IT company, they would rather look for somebody either brahmana or kshatriya, vaishya, shudra working in the IT industry, rather than finding a person from the same jati who's living some 500 kilometers away and working in a field doing some farming, or who's doing something totally different profession, simply because it is more convenient and people know the lifestyle. People can easily coordinate their time and so on, because at the end of the day, it's about the small things you are dealing with every day, right? It's not so much about some labels. So even earlier also, if you see, people of a certain varna, certain jati were doing very similar kind of activities. And over a period of time, this after the British education, a lot of people started moving out of their said varna and doing other activities, whether it's working in IT, working for the government, or working for a private sector, whatever different activities that they were doing. So therefore, the conception has changed today. What today, the amount it is relevant, I think personally, is that it basically gives us a framework to organize any society or organization or group or something. So there will be people who are kind of the intellectual class, in some sense, people who are doing the brain work. Then there are people who are doing the work of valor and governance. There are people who are managing the money, and there are people who are supporting the rest of them. So this larger idea, I think, is valuable. So that's something to keep in mind. And when we go back, so there is one question from Vedavyasa about, the different, based on the Varna, different levels of punishments were given in the older law texts like Manusmriti and other things. So now everybody had certain rules and regulation and restriction. So in some cases, like some things were prohibited for a Brahmana, some things were prohibited for Kshatriyas, some things were prohibited for Vaishyas, some things were prohibited for Shudras. Now, if a Brahmana does something which is prohibited for him, and he does some heinous crime, the same thing may not be prohibited for a Vaishya, may not be prohibited for a Shudra. But if Brahmana does this, he will be punished. Whereas same activity, because it's not prohibited for Shudra, he is not going to be punished. Similarly, the other way around, there are certain activity prohibited for Shudra, allowed for Kshatriya. So if Shudra does it, he'll get punished, Kshatriya won't get punished. So this kind of things were there, and even based on the merit of the individual, there was, to my understanding at least, there was a graded kind of punishment. So it's not like the same crime done by two different people will get the same level of punishment. So somebody who's from a good family, who's well educated and still commits a crime, he'll be given a more severe punishment because there is no reason for him to commit that crime. So I think that society at that time was different. They had different rules and regulation. Today we don't have that. So I feel that sometimes people are unfair in labeling Hindus as Manuvadis and things like that, because today we don't follow Manusmriti in our courts, and our constitution doesn't have anything to do with Manusmriti. It's an independent work. It is a quote unquote secular constitution. So there is no point in labeling Hindus as Manuvadis, because it's an old text. People who are interested can read it, but socially what implications it has, it is very limited. Whereas even today, many of the Islamic countries follow the traditional Sharia law, which was given to them 1,400 years back, which is largely outdated today, but still they follow it. So therefore, it is not the case with the other religions. Like even Christianity has a biblical canon and the biblical law, but that's not followed in most of the Christian countries also. So therefore, we have to see what is the situation today and to what extent we can learn from the past. And if something is irrelevant in the past, we can just keep it away, because we don't know what circumstances led to that kind of visualization, that kind of pronouncements. So better to leave that. If something is valuable, we can take it. So that sort of a Nirakshira Nyaya is definitely valuable for us, because we don't know exactly what went into the creation of a text 3,000 years back, 4,000 years back. We can only appreciate some of the points in the evolution of thought. But if it is irrelevant to us today, we can just keep it aside. There is no problem. We have that freedom in our tradition. So with that, I think I've given a little bit of overview of these ideas, and I think I've answered your questions to the extent that I can. We'll continue now, and we see this repeat of the same shloka in a little slightly modified form from the third chapter. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat swabhava niyatam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. So try to excel in your swadharma, even if it is less appealing, even if it appears less glamorous. It is better than following the dharma of others sincerely. You may do it sincerely, but it is not your dharma, it's somebody else. It's the dharma of another. So you will never feel guilty if you follow your inherent nature. So, when your personality, your attitude, your talent, your nurturing environment would have taken you to a certain place and given you certain skills and given you certain propensities. Now, if you work aligned to that, you will not feel guilty. At least you will be happy doing the work that you're naturally aligned to. It may give some extraordinary result in the future. It may not give some monetary benefits. It may not give you fame. It may not give you something uh, to a very high degree. But at least through the course of your life, you will not be feeling bad. You won't feel guilty because you have done that something which is most natural to you, right? So vigunaha swadharmaha swanushtitat paradharmat shreyan. Or yeah, paradharmat swanushtitat vigunaha swadharmaha shreyan. You can also look at it that way. Swabhava niyatam karma kurvan kilbisham na apnoti. So vigunaha swadharma, a swadharma that is less appealing, that appears to have very few qualities, that appears to have no qualities, no material gains, no gains of fame and name and glamour. It is better, Shreyan, than paradharmat su anushtitat, swanushtitat, than sincerely following the dharma of others. That is not aligned to you, you sincerely follow it, even then you won't get what you are intending. Swabhava niyatam karma. So the work that is aligned to your temperament, kurvan, doing that, kilbisham na apnoti. You will not feel guilty. You will not reach a bad place. You won't have, you won't face trouble in a larger sense. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Paradharmat swanushtitat.
Swabhava niyatam karma.
Swabhava niyatam karma.
Kurvan apnoti kilbisham.
Kurvam napnoti kilbisham.
Very good. Then sahajam karma kaunteya sadosham apina tyajet sarvarambha hi doshena dhumena agni rivavritaha. So it is only natural that all pursuits have some defect, just as fire is often obscured by smoke. But one should never abandon work that is suited to one's nature simply because it is inconvenient. So Kaunteya, sadosham api sahajam karma na tyajet. So sahajam karma, the most natural work aligned to your nature, just because sadosham, it has got some defects. So there, just because it has got some defects, don't give up. Na tyajet sahajam karma. Then dhumena hi agnihi iva sarvarambha doshena avritaha. Just like fire is covered by smoke, obscured by smoke, dhumena, by smoke, hi agnihi iva. So just like Agni, fire is covered by smoke, sarvarambha, all undertakings, doshena avritaha, are covered by smoke, are covered by defects. So the real thing is the fire. The smoke is just obscuring it. It is something surfacial. But the moment the smoke blows away, what you have is a fire. So the defects are peripheral. They are just surfacial. Once you push the defects away, what you get, that is the swakarma, your activity aligned to your nature. So you can ask any person, even a most successful person in a given field who is very, very happy, who's doing work aligned to his own nature, her own nature, anybody, they will tell you 100 problems that they face on a daily basis. Whether it is a film actor, whether it's a musician, a dancer, painter, a software professional, writer, there are many problems we will face. I myself, as a person who has been doing what I like to do, I have always followed, this idea of Swadharma, whether it is because of Bhagavad Gita or my own common sense, doesn't matter. But I have, as much as possible, followed my Swadharma. Even then, there are 101 problems. Now, if you are self-employed, there you have certain set of problems. If you're working for a company, you have certain set of problem. If your parents give you some inheritance and you say, do whatever you want, then you have a different set of problems. So everywhere, any activity will be tainted by some problems, because the problem is not with the activity, problem is with human being. we have certain expectations, we have certain desires, we have certain vulnerabilities. Therefore, problems arise. So, a person who does not have that, any activity he does, he will do it without problems. So, what is important is any undertaking for most of the human beings, 99.99999% of the human beings, there will be some problem. But just because there are problems, we will not abandon the work suited to our nature just because something is inconvenient. There are always hurdles. Any undertaking, any journey, there is no perfectly smooth journey. When the work is suited to our aptitude and interest and everything, the hurdles seem insignificant, however big they may be. But when we work against our own nature, even the small hurdles seem big, right? So my co-author, Dr. Sri Krishna, gives this very nice example. If you want to go from India to the US, the visa process is the pain. It is not easy to get the visa. It's a big, to get a passport itself, those days was difficult. So imagine you are newly married and you are sent on work to the US or some other country. You are being separated from your beloved. Then every single stage will be painful. Oh my God, I have to get a passport. I have to go stand in the passport office. Oh, I have to go get police verification. Oh, I have to apply for this visa. I have to go there for the interview. Every stage, and you're waiting in the airlines. Oh, there's a security check. Oh, horrible. The food is horrible in the flight. There's no leg space. This, all the time you are, very, very upset, mainly because you are being separated from your beloved. Now, on the other hand, you're going to the US to meet your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, or your wife or husband, whatever, right? You have been separated for a long time. You're going there, the same set of activities, getting a passport, getting a visa, everything you do with enthusiasm, the activity is the same. But because you're so eagerly looking forward to going there, all these things seem insignificant. So similarly, whenever we do some activity, because we like that activity, we enjoy that activity, all the challenges will seem less. Like some people love driving, okay? So whatever the challenges on the road, that becomes insignificant because they love driving. There are some people who hate driving. So even if there's a small pothole, they will start cribbing. So the thing really is that the problem is not outside. The outside world is what it is. It is how we perceive it and how this swakarma will help us blow that smoke away and look at the fire, right? Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sahajam karma kaunteya.
Sadosham api na tyajet.
Swadosham api na dvajet.
Na tyajet. Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Sarvarambha hi doshena.
Dhumena
Dhumenagni nivaritaha.
So dhumena agnihi iva avritaha. So 4 words come together. Dhumena agni rivavritaha. Okay. Very good. Next. Good. Then Krishna says, Asakta buddhis sarvatra jitatma vigata spriha naishkarmya siddhim paramam sanyasenadhi gacchati. So, one who masters himself and is free from desires and attachments attains the supreme perfection through renunciation and transcends all bondages of action. So, sarvatra asakta buddhihi jitatma vigata spriha sanyasena paramam naishkarmya siddhim adhigacchati. So, sarvatra, everywhere, in all pursuits, asakta buddhihi, an intellect that is detached. Jitatma, one who has conquered himself, one who has mastered herself. Vigata spriha, free from any kind of attachments and desires. Spriha is like attachment, craving, and vigata spriha, one whose cravings are gone. Sanyasena, through sannyasa, through renunciation, paramam, the ultimate naishkarmya siddhim, the attainment of like Naishkarmya is like transcending action. A person who is gone beyond karma, who does not need to do karma because they are completely detached from karma phala. Okay, so Naishkarmya Siddhim Adhigachati attains that highest state where there's complete bond, like his freedom from all the bondages of action, transcends that uh, and attains the highest perfection. Asakta buddhihi sarvatra
asakta buddhihi sarvatra
jitatma vigata sprihah.
jigatma jigatma
No, jitatma, one who has, jita is victor, jitatma is one who has conquered himself.
jitatma jitatma vigata sprihah
Naishkarmya siddhim paramam
नैष्कर्म्य सिद्धिं परमां
samnyasenadhigacchati.
संन्यासेनाधिगच्छति.
Very good. So here, asakta buddhihi, detached intellect, then jitatma, one who has conquered the self, vigata spruhaha, one who is not having cravings, through sannyasa, sannyasena. So through the path of renunciation, he attains the highest. So when we break down a verse into different components, it's easy for us to remember. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tatapnoti nibodame samasenaiva kaunteya nishtha jnanasya yapara. So listen now, I will explain to you how one who has attained perfection also attains Brahman, also attains Brahma Jnana. Kaunteya, his सिद्धिं प्राप्तः ब्रह्म यथा आपनोति तथा मे निबोध या ज्ञानस्य परानिष्ठा समासेन एव. So he says siddhim praptah, one who has attained perfection, brahma tatha apnoti tatha. So how brahma yatha apnoti tatha me, I will tell you how he attains Brahman. Jnanasya paranishtha samasena eva. So through knowledge, through sincere application, one who has attained the perfect state, I will tell you how he also attains the Brahmi Sthiti, how he attains the supreme state. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma.
सिद्धिं प्राप्तो यथा धर्म
Yatha brahma. Tathapnoti nibodha me.
तथाप्नोति निबोध मे
Samasenaiva kaunteya.
समासेनैव कौन्तेय
Nishtha jnanasya ya para.
निष्ठा ज्ञानस्य या परा.
Very good. Now, the set of 3 shlokas. So, how a person who has attained perfection also can attain the state of Brahman. In 3 shlokas, 51, 52, 53, Krishna explains. We will go see them together. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayams tyaktva ragadveshau vyudasya cha. Then he says, Vivikta sevi laghvashi yatavakkaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. And finally, ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmamaha shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So let us see them one after the other. He says, endowed with clear reasoning and with firm restraint, he relinquishes sound and all other sensations while remaining impartial and selfless. Okay. Then the next, living in solitude, eating lightly and regulating his body, mind and speech through meditation, he is established in a state of perfect detachment. And the third, he says, free from ego, aggression, arrogance, desire, anger, and sense of possession or possessiveness, he is at peace with himself and with others and is fit to become one with Brahman. So, Vishuddhaya Buddhya Yuktaha Dhritya Atmanam Niyamya cha Shabdadin Vishayan Tyaktva Ragadvesho Vyudasya cha Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi Yatavak Kaya Manasaha Nityam Dhyana Yoga Paraha Vairagyam Samupashritaha Ahankaram Balam Darpam Kamam Krodham Parigraham Vimuchya Shantaha Nirmamaha Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So Vishuddhaya Buddhya, one who has got clear reasoning, Yuktaha, one who is united with the Supreme, or who has got that connection with the highest. Dhritya Atmanam Niyamya, who is controlled himself with fortitude, who has mastered himself or herself. Shabdadin Vishayan Tyaktva, having given up sound and other sensations. Ragadvesho Vyudasya cha, and he has given up raga and dvesha, passion and hatred, likes and dislikes. So he's impartial, he is selfless, he is detached. Then Vivikta Sevi, one who is living in solitude. Laghvashi, who eats little. Then Yata Vakaya Manasaha, one who is controlling speech, actions, body, and thought. Who all the three are in control. Nityam Dhyana Yoga Paraha, who is always in a state of meditation, who is constantly meditating. Vairagyam Samupashrataha, who is established in a state of detachment. Then free from Ahankara, arrogance or ego, Balam, which is kind of aggression, Darpa, which is arrogance, and Kama, which is lust, Krodha, which is anger, Parigraha, which is sense of possession, Vimuchya, having let go of all these things, Shantaha, having attained peace, he's at peace, Nirmamaha, without a feeling of me and mine and I, no feeling of that, he's at peace with himself and with other people. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, he is ready to become one with Brahman. He is fit to become one with Brahman. So let's look at the three verses. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto.
Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto.
Dhrityatmanam Niyamya cha.
Dhrityatmanam Niyamya cha.
Shabdadin Vishayams Tyaktva.
Shabdadin Vishayams Tyaktva.
Raga Dveshau Vyudasya cha.
Raga Dveshau Vyudasya cha.
Very good. Then next, Vivikta Sevi Laghvashi.
Vivikta Sevi Laghvasi.
Yata Vak Kaya Manasaha.
Yata Vak Kaya Manasaha.
Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam.
Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam.
Vairagyam Samupashritaha.
Vairagyam Samupashritaha.
Ahankaram Balam Darpam.
Alankaram Balam.
No, Ahankaram. Alankaram means something which is decoration. Ahankaram means Aham is me. Ahankara means I, arrogance, feeling ego. Okay. So Ahankaram Balam Darpam.
Ahankaram Balam Darpam.
Kamam Krodham Parigraham.
Kamam Krodham Parigraham.
Vimuchya Nirmamaha Shanto.
Vimuchya Nirmamaha Shanto.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate.
It's also true he would Alankaram Vimuchya, he will give up Alankara, but here it is Ahankara. Okay. Next, he says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. In that serenity of oneness, unmoved by sadness or anxiety, treating everyone in the same manner, he gains utmost devotion to the Supreme. So Brahma Bhutah Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sarveshu bhuteshu samaha param madbhaktim labhate. So Brahma Bhuta, one who has attained that oneness, who has in that serenity of oneness, who has become one with Brahman, Prasannatma, first quality of Brahma Jnana is pure bliss, is very, very, having that prasannata, like a happiness, joy, delight. Na shochati, na kankshati. He is unmoved by sadness or anxiety. He doesn't cry, he doesn't worry. Sarveshu bhuteshu samaha. He sees all the beings in the same way. He's a samadarshi, like we have seen earlier. Param madbhaktim labhate. He attains the ultimate devotion to me, Krishna says, which is ultimate devotion to the Supreme. So, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma.
Brahmabhuta Prasannatma
Na shochati, na kankshati.
na shochati na kankshati
Samaha sarveshu bhuteshu
samaha sarveshu bhuteshu
mad bhaktim labhate param.
madbhaktim labhate param.
Very good. He says, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tad anantaram. So, he realizes the essential nature of the Supreme through that ultimate devotion. And after knowing the fundamental truth, he is united with the Supreme at once. So, Bhaktya tattvataha yavan yahacha asmi mam abhijanati tataha mam tattvataha jnatva tad anantaram vishate. So, Bhaktya tattvataha yavan. So, through this ultimate devotion, through bhakti, one who understands the tattva, tattvataha yavatcha asmi, that he realizes that I am the Supreme Being, mam abhijanati, who knows me as the Supreme Being, tataha, then mam tattvataha jnatva, knowing that, with that knowledge, with the realization of the fundamental truth, tad anantaram vishate, he attains that higher state at once. He becomes one with me immediately. So, bhaktya mam abhijanati.
Bhaktya mam abhijanati
Yavan yaschasmi tattvataha.
yavan chasmi
Yaschasmi tattvataha. Then
tatvataha
tato mam tattvato jnatva.
tato mam tatvo tato mam tatvo
Tattvato jnatva.
tatvato jnatva
Vishate tad anantaram.
vishate tat anantaram.
Very good. Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvano mad vyapashrayah mat prasadadavapnoti shashvatam padam avyayam. So even when constantly engaged in worldly activities, by taking refuge in the Supreme, he will reach that eternal imperishable state. Such is the divine grace. So sada sarva karmani kurvanaha api mad vyapashrayah mat prasadat avyayam shashvatam padam avapnoti. So sada, at all times, constantly, sarva karmani kurvanaha, even when engaged in all the various activities, all the worldly activities, api, even then, mad vyapashrayah, by taking refuge in me, by focusing your concentration on the Supreme Being, by taking refuge in me, mat prasadat, by my divine grace, by my grace or by the divine grace, avyayam shashvatam padam, the eternal imperishable state, avapnoti, he attains. So through the divine grace, he attains the highest, provided he is taking refuge in the Supreme. Okay. Sarva karmanyapi sada.
Sarva karmanyapi sada.
Kurvano mad vyapashrayah.
कुर्वाणो मद्व्यपाश्रयः
मत्प्रसादादवाप्नोति
मत्प्रसादादवाप्नोति
शाश्वतं पदम् अव्ययम्.
शाश्वतं पदमव्ययम्.
Next, the two verses are to be taken together, 57 and 58. Chetasa sarva karmani mai samnasya matparaha buddhi yogam upashritya matchittah satatam bhava. And matchittah sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi atha chetvam ahankaran na shroshyasi vinangshyasi. Okay. With firm understanding, regard me as the supreme, think of me always, and consciously dedicate your actions to me. So, consciously dedicate your actions to the supreme being. You shall overcome every hurdle by my grace. But out of arrogance, if you refuse to listen to me, you will perish. So, sarva karmani chetasa mai sanyasya बुद्धि योगम उपाश्रित्य मत परः सततम मत चित्तः भव मत चित्तः मत प्रसादात् सर्व दुर्गाणि तरिष्यसि अथ त्वम् अहंकारात् न श्रोष्यसि चेत विनङ्क्ष्यसि. So sarva karmani chetasa, when you are all in with all your when you're all your work that you do, chetasa mai sanyasya, so dedicate all that action consciously, chetasa, through your chitta, through your awareness, you dedicate your actions to me because you realize that the supreme is the reason for all the happening in the universe. So you dedicate all your action to the supreme. Buddhi yogam upashritya, so taking refuge in the intellect and the path of the intellect. Mat paraha, so think of me always. Satatam mat chitta bhava, always think of me and regard me as a supreme, and be with the firm understanding of buddhi. And then mat chittah mat prasadat sarva durgani tarishyasi, so with your mind dedicated to me and with my divine grace, you will overcome every hurdle. You will cross over, tarishyasi, you will cross over sarva durgani. Durga literally means fort. So in this case, it means all the troubles you will cross over by my grace. Athatvam ahankarat na shroshyasi, if you don't listen to me out of arrogance, then vinangshyasi, you will perish. So if when you refuse to listen to good advice out of arrogance, it is very important. Ahankarat is a very important phrase here. When you are countering somebody's advice, or you are giving some reasoning, you are trying to reason with them with a in a sattvic way, that's different from refusing advice out of arrogance. So that is very important, that if you want to disagree with somebody in a meaningful way with the buddhi purassara, like with using your intellect and being honest and disagreeing with something, it is okay. But out of arrogance, if you just refuse to listen to good counsel, then naturally you will get destroyed. You will face the music, right? So chetasa sarva karmani
चेतसा सर्वकर्माणि
mai sanyasya mat paraha
मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः
buddhi yogam upashritya
बुद्धियोगम् उपाश्रित्य
mat chittah satatam bhava.
मच्चित्तः सततं भव.
Good. Mat chittah sarva durgani
मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि
mat prasadat tarishyasi
मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि
na shroshyasi atha chetvam ahankaran.
अत चेत्त्वम् अहङ्कारा
Yeah, na shroshyasi vinangshyasi.
न शोष्यति विनङ्क्ष्यसि.
Yeah. Again, 59 and 60 are to be taken as one unit. So yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase mityaisha vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyokshyati. And then he says, स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्ध स्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत् करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत्. So 59 and 60 together. Even if you say, I will not fight out of ego or ignorance, you cannot abide by your decision because you will be forced by your own nature to do so against your will. We are all obliged to act in accordance with our own inherent nature. So it is very difficult for us to violate what is most natural to us. Right? Sometimes you would have experienced also that we are so used to certain activity or something is so natural to us, we can superficially restrain ourselves. But if the moment our attention moves away from that, we go back to the old habit, right? So it's very, very difficult to do something against our nature. So he says, Yadi ahankaram ashritya, if you take refuge in ahankara, no yotsye, I will not fight. Iti manyase, if you think, that if you declare that, if you feel that you cannot fight, then eshaha te vyavasayaha mithya. That is, it is kind of, as far as you're concerned, it's a lie. It will be rendered futile. Prakritihi tvam niyokshyati. So, very, very important that you are bound by Prakriti. By your nature will force you to do something which is aligned to your inner temperament. So nature will force you to follow your nature, right? So Kaunteya, swabhavajena svena karmana nibaddaha yat kartum na ichhasi. So if you are not na ichhasi, if you don't desire to swabhavajena svena karmana, the work that is most aligned to you, that is aligned to your temperament, that is most natural to you, if you are refusing to work, then tat mohat avashaha api karishyasi. So basically, you will be forced, you will be forced to do the work which is aligned to you, even against your own will, right? So you cannot abide by the decision of I will not fight because you are going to be forced by nature to act according to your innate characteristics, right? Yad ahankaram ashritya
यदहङ्कारमाश्रित्य
न योत्स्य इति मन्यसे
न योत्स्य इति मन्यसे
मिथ्यैष व्यवसायस्ते
मिथ्यैष व्यवसायस्थे
प्रकृतिस्त्वां नियोक्ष्यति.
प्रकृतिस्त्वां नियोक्ष्यति.
Very good. स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय
स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय
निबद्धः स्वेन कर्मणा
निबद्धः स्वेन कर्मणा
कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात्
कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात्
करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत्.
करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत्.
करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत्.
करिष्यस्यवशोऽपि तत्.
Very good. Okay, we have time for maybe another one or two. Let's see. He says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddesherjuna tishtati bhramayam sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. Another very nice verse. He says, Arjuna, the Supreme Lord resides equally in the hearts of all beings and by Maya causes them to move about as though driven by a machine. So he says, Arjuna, Ishvaraha, the Supreme Lord, Sarva Bhutani, in all the beings, Yantrarudhani Mayaya Brahmayan Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati. So Sarva Bhutanam Hriddeshe Tishtati is equally residing in the hearts of all beings, and Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudhani, as if driven by a machine, Mayaya, through Maya, the divine power of illusion, Brahmayan, it makes it move. It causes the world to move as though it is being driven by a machine. Okay. Ishvaraha sarvabhutanam
ईश्वरः सर्वभूतानां
हृद्देशेऽर्जुन तिष्ठति
हृद्देशे अर्जुन तिष्ठति
भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि
भ्रामयन् सर्वभूतानि
यन्त्रारूढानि मायया.
यन्त्रारूढानि मायया.
So through Maya, it is almost like some machine is driving the whole thing. It drives the universe like a machine. He says, Tameva Sharanam Gacha Sarva Bhavena Bharata Tat Prasadat Param Shantim Sthanam Prapsyasi Shashvatam. So take refuge in him alone with your whole being, and by his grace you will attain that state of eternal peace. Bharata, descendant of Bharata, Sarva Bhavena Tam Eva Sharanam Gacha. So take refuge, Sarva Bhavena Tam, in him, Sarva, with your whole being, with all your complete, emotion and with your entire being, Tam Eva Sharanam Gacha. So take refuge in him. Tat Prasadat, by his grace, by his divine grace, Param Shantim, the eternal peace, Shashvatam, all ever sustaining, Sthanam Prapsyasi, you will attain that eternal state of sustained peace. Very interesting in this verse, Krishna says, Tam, him, that is Tat Prasadat, by his grace. He refers to the Supreme Being as separate from himself, as a higher identity. So is a complete, when he is detaching himself also for a moment and says the Supreme Being is something even bigger than him. Is just a suggestion, maybe it's not intentional, but it's a beautiful idea that Supreme is something which encompasses everything, right? So Tameva Sharanam Gacha.
तमेव शरणं गच्छ
Sarvabhavena Bharata
सर्वभावेन भारत
Tat Prasadat Param Shantim
तत् प्रसादात् परमं शान्तिं
Param Shantim
परां शान्तिं
Sthanam Prapsyasi Shashvatam.
स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्.
Okay, we will stop here. Then tomorrow we will start with another beautiful verse, 1863. And I think we should be able to wrap up tomorrow. We are at 60. Today we have completed 684 shlokas out of 700. We have 16 remaining, I think, which we will easily complete tomorrow. And also I'll try to give an overview of the 18th chapter in the remaining time. Possibly we can have a session. I'll talk to my uncle, Dr. Sri Krishna, and see if it works for him. Thursday evening his time and Friday morning India time, whether he can do a presentation, which is kind of the highlights of the Bhagavad Gita. If required, we can spill over to another session on Sunday evening US time and Monday morning India time. That will probably be our last session. And then Tuesday morning, we will have election day here. So election counting day. So everybody will be busy on June 4th. So we'll try to wrap up on June 3rd. Depending on the requirement, we may have a class on Saturday. If that's okay for everybody, we'll find out. If that works, then we can even do. If there is a follow-up session, what I feel is if it gets wrapped up on Friday, that is Thursday evening session by Dr. Sri Krishna, then no problem. But if he wants to extend for some more time, we can do that on Saturday morning India time, Friday evening US time. Then the last June 3rd session, June 2nd in the US, we'll keep it for the final wrap up and any questions and so on, right? Does that sound good, Shilpa? Okay, very good. So let's do that. And of course, what next? We'll plan it out. We'll see the schedule of everybody, and we'll make some plans. Definitely, it'll be interesting to see what can happen next. So good. Thank you so much, Pavani, for reciting today. Good. And it's always easier when you understand the meaning. It's even easier to recite also, right? So now that you have got the meaning, when you recite Bhagavad Gita, you can do it with the awareness of the meaning. So you will know the words, how to split the words, right? Very
Okay,
good.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will see you tomorrow for the probably the last class, and then a few more classes of wrap up. So take care and all the best. Om Tat Sat. Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you
Hariji.
so much.